AOSD Chandler. AOSD. Watch me bring it out.
Assembly of Sound Doctrine.
AOSD. Watch me bring it out.
You know the script. So what they saying? You brought her with you. Now you're playing. I ain't playing with your plans. Scriptures watch the land. I'm powering up with higher gods like Super Saiyan. I can do it solo. Kill a whole doctor with three quotes. From the Christians to the Hebrews, they're all lost like Nemo. And they give them a shot like a free throw. Break it all down like a peephole. Take some notes from the lesson gain and knowledge is the lesson from the spirit in the kingdom that's a keyhole. Oh no, I know it's been fulfilled and all go. The kingdom is here, I'm hyped, so underneath we might go. Come learn with me, this new covenant living. The kingdom within, loving all of God's children. Watch me break some truth, brainworks of good fruits. Hebrew literature, real doctors like saber-tooth. I'm gonna let it loose from the Passover to the Feast of Booths. From the law of Moses, from head to toe to the new creation, everything is new. AOSD, 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 Assembly of Sound Doctrine.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. I hope everyone's having a fantastic day. Let's see what we got going on here. Let's see if I'm picking up great. Okay, yeah, I'm picking up good. This is Elvin Israel from the Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler. Let me go ahead and sign in on my clubhouse now to make sure that we're ready to rock and roll. Alrighty. Let's see here. Let's find the topic. One second as my clubhouse loads up. But here, this is the YouTube channel AOSD-CHANDLER. And when you hold on, what's going on with my clubhouse? One second. Let's see what's going on with the clubhouse. All right, there we go. All right, so now you see the YouTube channel AOSD-CHANDLER stands for Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler, where the point of the channel is to concentrate on the ancient mindset of Israel. We're not out here trying to modernize the Bible and make it fit some type of American breakdown. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to keep it real, as realistically as possible, using the information the way that the original audience would have saw it and would have used it and what they would have known. And from that information, we find out how to, in fact, make it fit today's narrative or how it fits in with today's time without abusing the text and making the text mean something that it doesn't, that it didn't originally mean. So that's the point of this channel, and we're going to continue to do that work. So today we're going to go over Matthew 25. So let me here. All right. So today we're going to go over Matthew 25 and verses. We're going to hit 32 through 36. But the point is to show you the terrific breakdown of what's going on in Matthew 25. Hopefully, it opened up your mind so you can understand what exactly Matthew was trying to accomplish when he was writing these few verses. I would like to say shalom to the panel on Clubhouse. How are you gentlemen doing?
Blessed and highly favored, brother. Hey, peace and blessings to you, brother. How you doing? You already know, bro. You already same. Peace and blessings.
I should I bet. Shalom, shalom. We finna get ready to get this thing started. And before we start the lesson, public service announcement. I know you guys out there in the biblical world right now. You guys are sitting back and you're listening and you're hearing so much new information come out that you have never heard before. You have never heard. Say it again, brother.
Talk about
Okay.
it. Let's talk about it.
Yes, sir. So you have never heard this information before, ever, right? So you're like, hey, where did this come from? I just been in the Bible the whole time, and we didn't overlooked it. And this community, this is going from the whole Christian community, right? So from the Christian community to the Hebrew Israelite community to the preterist community. I know we're hearing so much information, and you're like, man, this sounds great. I'm just here to let it be known. You are now tuned in to the reformers, to the originators of that message. It doesn't matter how much it get remixed or turned around. It's not about homage, but I want you to know if you want to get the original understanding, you are in the right place right now to see how it came to us from the Holy Spirit and how we break it down pretty much per se. So you're going to get the raw and uncut, unedited way first from us, and then you can compare it and contrast it to others if that's what you want to do. But this is where it originated from. We are now stating that we're going to be the self-proclaimed new reformers of this doctrine, and we're going to be the ones who put it on our shoulders and make it our duty to turn it around and give it how it's supposed to be, all through the Most High, Lord's willing. So this is the originators right here. So if it's from AOSD all the way to RPK, you're dealing with the originators. We're all one family. We all work together on one accord. We are the innovators and the originators of this understanding. So now, uh, I just had to make that announcement. Say it again, brother.
Brother Elvin, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so can you explain to me how RPK is the originators of this doctrine that you are trying to explain today? Can you break that down for me today?
Okay, I got you.
Now, at this point in this aspect,
Uh,
because I would need to understand why you are saying you are the originator of this doctrine.
right,
Can
right.
you break that down for
Okay,
me,
I
brother?
got you. I got you. And we are the whole group. We are the originators of
Okay,
the doctrine. And the reason we are the originators because
okay.
when we was
Break it
going,
down for me, brother.
I got you, my
Break it
brother.
down for me, brother.
I
I
got
can
you.
hear it. Yes, sir. Yes,
I,
sir. I can hear it.
I got you. So now, when we started off, right? Everyone know that we were in the full preterist movement, and then me and Josephus actually picked the term fuller preterist movement. But we noticed no one was wanting to touch um, like the book of Enoch. Nobody wanted to touch pretty much Josephus. Nobody wanted to touch Philo. No one wanted to touch the ascension of Isaiah. No one wanted to touch uh, in fact, all of the rest of the Enochs and etc. So we got all of this ancient literature left over by the Jews, right? And we are the ones that went in. We are the ones who studied it for tens to twenties to hundreds of hours. We are the ones who came in and we kind of debated it amongst ourselves until we got the doctrine correct. So we are the ones that did that footwork and went in and got this information from these individuals that nobody wanted to touch, including the Dead Sea Scrolls also. So no one wanted to touch these individuals. So now that the doctrine is actually sounding great and the doctrine actually makes sense. And now people are understanding the what we've been saying the whole time is that these ancient people, they are the ones who had the understanding. So now we are the ones who brought it out to the world, and now people are actually saying that this stuff is correct. So instead of trying to continue where the people who actually started it was at, now we are hearing over Clubhouse and etc. That it's getting broken off. The information is getting broken off and it's getting kind of remixed and it's kind of not exactly what it's supposed to be. So we are the originators from it. So if anyone want to hear how it's supposed to be made, they got to come here.
Okay, so let me, I got another question for you. Before you ask that question, okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So to give more understanding of the type of things Elvin was talking about, like if you hear somebody talking about how maybe the book of Genesis is allegorical, right? You got to come get the understanding this way about why it was said and how it was said and stuff like that. You're going to hear a lot of things similar to that, and that's just one of many things, right? You know, you're going to hear about how the book of Revelation is basically the whole Old Testament to the New Testament summed up, and people are not, you know, when you start hearing people talk about audience relevance in the form that we talk about audience relevance, but yet still not quite doing it the way it's supposed to be done, right? We're talking about things like that. They have to come here to get the original understanding of that. But go ahead, Demetrius.
Okay, so we're talking about the original message. So I see Elvin and Josephus and Mike and I see the, there's another um, individual there. So what does that? What I want to ask is, what that does for my life on a continual basis? What does this does for me as the individual on a continual basis? Because you are telling me that everything has done away with. What has what is the virtuous aspect done for me that will do for me in the virtuous aspect? Help me out.
I got you. So the everything being fulfilled. That's pretty much the beginning of the awakening doctrine. The everything's been fulfilled. So now that everything has been fulfilled, as my brother Demetrius is saying, what is the next step? Well, the next step is you have to be made in the image of God. So in the beginning, through the whole fulfillment process, this allowed people that access so they could be in the image of God. But in order to be that ruler that you're supposed to be, in order to the reason why he put you on earth, in order for you to accomplish that task of being a kingdom citizen, to building the kingdom and etc., you have to understand what was taken away and what was added, what was given to us. So what was taken away? All of the carnality. The carnality was taken away. Yes, sir.
Hold on, Evan. Hold on, Evan. Hold on, Evan. Let's go back for a minute. You said we want to be in the kingdom of God. That's what you said.
Hmm.
So how can we be in the kingdom of God today and we are not in the land?
The land the land itself, and see, and that's another thing. Coming to the group, the land itself was just a proxy. The land itself was really just it was a representation. It was a representative of the Garden of Eden.
You're saying too much. You saying too much, El. You saying too much. You saying too much. You said it's a proxy. It's a it's a representation of the land. You got to break that down for me, brother.
Well, the way the Bible is laid out, Everything started in the invisible. And y'all, hold on, y'all. This is before we get ready to start the Matthew 25, the little breakdown. So now, everything in the Bible started off, according to the Bible, it started off in the invisible. But in order for the, say it again. Uh huh. Uh huh. No, no, in the invisible. Invisible. No, it started off in the invisible. Yeah. It was. Well, carnally. See this, and this is what we're. This is. Yeah, yeah. So this is what's going on. Right. Well, in my paradigm, this is my paradigm right here. My paradigm was, I got you. So everything started in the invisible. Everything was in the different realm. So when he brought everything to life, to the visible, to things that we could see with our carnal eyes, he had to use the carnality, the carnal realm, to explain the invisible realm. So when he did that, he used some these markers to expound on him. Like for instance, nature, for instance, rivers, waters, and all of that stuff. For instance, the sun, all of these things are pretty much what they call correspondence that represents what's going on in the invisible. So what people did, people started concentrating on the visible, and they made the visible the reality because they live in the visible. But well, no, the realm is not metaphorical. The realm itself is as real as this realm that we live in.
What's in the natural realm that was given to us in the metaphorical realm is true in nature in the physical realm. Is that what you telling me?
I'm trying to make sure I understand what you're saying. So I think, are you saying that so which realm is the metaphorical realm? Which one is that?
The metaphorical realm that I am as an unbeliever is relating to you is the natural realm.
Okay, the natural realm. Right, right, right. Okay.
So the spiritual
Uh
realm
huh.
is the true nature that we need to understand that what the physical realm is really trying to show us.
Uh
Is that
huh.
what I'm trying to get you to understand?
That's exactly what's going on. The natural realm is the reflection of what the spiritual realm is all about. Correct.
Okay, so now I need to understand what the spiritual realm is.
Bingo. All right. So now,
I will sit back and I will listen to you.
okay, bet,
Okay?
bet, bet. So what the spiritual realm is, it's the love. It's now, if we're talking about the community of the spiritual realm would actually be the souls, all souls that's in the light, no matter if it's angelic and etc. If we're talking about the community of the spiritual realm, so the spiritual realm is any and everything that's peaceful, no matter if it's angelic or the souls that we are in. So this is how we can be part of the spiritual realm and still be in our flesh because we are governed by the laws of the spiritual realm. So in order to see that spiritual realm, in order to be a part of that spiritual realm, you have to have a change of the mind. It has to be a new reality, a change of the mindset that we come through in order to have that spiritual realm as the pretty much um, beginning and end result. And let me try to make it plain real fast. In Genesis, it started off as a spiritual reality. In Revelation, it ended with a spiritual reality. So in the middle, they were all dealing with the flesh. But when Christ came on the scene, and after Christ left and the Holy Spirit came, we found out that even though people were in the flesh, they still was considered being led by the Spirit, allowing them to be partakers of the spiritual realm because they are spiritual themselves. So even when they left this carnal body, they still have that place in that spiritual realm, that kingdom of heaven, in which all of the souls return to and started from. So that's according to the ancient beliefs. So what we're doing, well, we're trying to get people back into that spiritual mindset, that spiritual realm as a collective and an individual.
Okay. All right. So our aim is to not reach for the physical aspect of everything that we have and that we do. Is our aim is to reach for that spiritual aspect and the things that God has put in perspective for us to do and to strive and to be.
I would say, yes, sir, that would be the end result. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was it, brother?
All right, so let's just sum that up, and I want to hear this lesson. Sum that up. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, yeah, you good. So in the whole point was, um, before all of this came in, the group sat down and we went through all of this information that the Lord allowed to be left over, that nobody wanted to touch, and we touched it and we polished it. So now, if anyone breaks off from it, that's on them. But if you want to hear how it originally flows, from the people that the Most High said, hey, I want you guys to be the ones that go in and get this information. If you want to hear how it originally started and how the original doctrine flows, this is the spot for you to be at. This is the place for you to be at. Now, if you want to take it and go somewhere else and say them guys are tripping or they don't know what they're talking about, that's on whomever. But it's a lot of the information that's being said right now in today's time, and I'm pointing to where it originated from. And if anyone says it didn't originate in RPK or AOSD, I would say look at the information, look at the YouTube channels, look at the websites and etc., and you can see where it originated from. So you guys are in the perfect place right now. You are in a great place to get the information handed to you. And you can do what you want to with that information. But you're all in the perfect place. So follow everyone on the panel if you want to. If the Lord put it on your heart, follow everyone on the panel. And if you have any questions, I'm pretty sure any other gentleman on the panel can answer them for you. So now, as Josephus stated, we're finna get ready to start with Matthew 25. So Matthew 25, and I'm not gonna actually go through the whole Matthew 25. When I want to start at verse number 32. And the reason why I'm starting at verse 32, because we understand that this is after the coming of the Lord, the coming of the Son of Man. So, just to give a backstory on how the Bible flows, once you go through the Torah and the Tanakh, we know that it's speaking on Christ. But what people have to they have to get into the detail of some of these stories, like dealing with David, dealing with Abraham, dealing with Joshua, and etc. How these stories are little foreshadows of Christ's life. So, in other words, you have Israel, the things that's going on with the older patriarchs, all the way up into the nation of Israel and beyond, all the way up into Malachi. You got all of these individuals who pretty much did something that was a part of Christ's life. So when Christ came on the scene, his story had already been spoken of throughout the Torah and the prophets. His story, from the birth to the redemption, the birth into the ministry, into the death, into his redemptive work, and etc. It all had been spoken of from the Torah to the Tanakh. So when Christ came on the scene, they already had the story already. They just didn't put it together. Christ helped them put it together. But the beautiful part about it is, when Christ left, when Christ resurrected and went into the heavens, the disciples themselves and the first century Christians, they took on the life of Christ. So let me say it again. In the Torah and Tanakh, this was a foreshadow of Christ. This was the things that Christ was going to do. So you have the shadow of Christ, and then you had Christ come on the scene, and then when Christ left, his disciples went through his life. So the prophets went through his life, and the disciples went through his life. Let me say it again. The prophets lived his life, and the prophets and the patriarchs lived his life, and then after he left, the disciples lived his life. We got to understand this is what the Bible's doing. It's giving you the life of Christ before, it is giving you the life of Christ after. So now, Matthew 25, when we're dealing with judgment, that judgment is picking up on the scene dealing with Christ. But notice how these people are being judged. And we're going to walk through some of the things that these people did. We're only going to go over pretty much four verses, right? But these 4 verses have a lot of meat in them. So Matthew 25, starting at verse 32. Now, we'll start at verse 31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all of his angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory. And we know that this is a quote from the book of Enoch. This is also a quote from what Christ had already told them in the earlier books or the earlier chapters of Matthew. So this is 2 things that's been hit upon, Enoch as well as what's going on in the earlier books of Matthew. And if you actually read the book of Enoch, these things that's spoken of about the Messiah is actually there in the book of Enoch. So now, verse 32, it says, and before him shall be gathered all nations, and he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divided his sheep from the goats. Verse 33, and he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, come ye, blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. So the first thing, we're going to actually get this scene. So what scene is this about? So you have the goats being separated from the sheep. You got the sheep on the right hand, which pretty much represented power, authority, compliance, and etc. And you got the goats on the left. So you have a dividing of the sheep and the goats. You got him telling the sheep come into the kingdom, and you got something that's happening to the goats. So this actually is being spoken of allegorically, dealing with Daniel 12, 1 and 2. So let's read Daniel 12, 1 and 2. It says, "And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt." So here in the resurrection motif, you got individuals that's coming up. They're rising, right? They're being gathered together. Now, he has the ones that got everlasting life, and then he got the others that went to shame and everlasting contempt. So, once you go into Matthew 25, you got the sheeps and the goats. The sheep went into the kingdom. The goats went into, and you find out later on, the weeping and gnashing of teeth, they went into pretty much perdition. But here, you got the ones that arose to everlasting life. So these would represent the sheep that got the kingdom. And then you got the others that rose to everlasting shame and contempt. These would be the goats. So Matthew 25, starting in verse 31 to 34, this is the scene that's taking place in Daniel 12, 1 and 2. So now, we want to compare that, right? We want to compare that to Second Ezra, starting at verse 6. Starting at verse 6. Second Ezra, starting at verse 6. And we're going to read, Second Ezra chapter 6. And we're going to read verses 54 and 55. So Second Ezra 6, 54 and 55. So listen to what's going on here. It says, "And after these, Adam also, whom thou madest, Lord of all over all thy creatures. Of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. All this I have spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes." So now, in 2nd Ezra 6, he makes the comparison that Adam, he was made Lord of all creatures, and everyone came from Adam. But there was a people that the Lord had chosen, and for those people that he had chosen, he actually made the world for them. So in other words, the author of 2nd Ezra is saying that even though there's people on the earth, right? Even though there's people on the world, there was a specific group of people that the world was made for. So when you compare that to Daniel 12, we find out that a specific group got everlasting life, and another group did not receive that everlasting life. So when you compare 2nd Ezra 6 to Daniel 12, you see that the ones that got everlasting life will be the ones that the world was made for. And the ones that didn't receive everlasting life, the world wasn't made for them. So Matthew 25, you have the separation. You got the people that the world was made for, and then you got the people the world wasn't made for. So I want to compare that. Give me one sec. I want to compare that to the legend of the Jews, right? We're finna go into the legend of the Jews because it's something that was stated in the legend of the Jews, which dealt with what Christ stated. So Christ stated, and let me go back to Christ's statement just in case. This is what Christ stated in Matthew 25. In Matthew 25, verse 34, then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world. So according to Christ, there was a kingdom prepared for those to receive, that was going to receive everlasting life. There was a kingdom prepared for them, and that kingdom was prepared for them before the foundations of the earth. So now, these individuals were on planet Earth. When Christ was speaking to the disciples, they were in the land of Canaan. And, well, in fact, I think Christ is, let me make sure here. Let me see here. Let me go to 24. Yes, yeah, okay then. Yeah, so Christ is speaking to the disciples, and he's explaining to them that there was a kingdom prepared for them before the foundations of the world. But there's not a lot of information. There's a lot of information that comes with this information, with this statement, kingdom prepared before the world. See, nobody today is really talking about this kingdom that was prepared before the world. And this kingdom itself that was prepared for the world, it was only made for the saints. They was only going to inherit that world. He specifically made it for his sons and daughters, not everybody else. So now we got the Legend of the Jews by Louis Ginsburg. He went in and he went around the whole area in the Eastern world, gathering together all of these legends that the Jews had. So I got a couple of his books dealing with the Legend of the Jews, so you guys can actually pick it up. But let me show you what he stated. One of the Legend of the Jews were this, and these things come from the Midrash and all of that stuff. So this would have been common knowledge in the first century. So now, this is what he states, one of the legends that they had. The creation of the world. The first things created. Let me say it again. The first things created. So this is the Legend of the Jews. In the beginning, 2,000 years before the heaven and the earth, 7 things were created. The Torah, written with black fire on white fire, and this is why we know that the Torah actually came from the heavens anyway, by reading Deuteronomy. He said, well, actually Exodus also. He said, I gave you my laws and my statutes and my Sabbath, to let it be known that these were heavenly things that they received. But anyway, the Torah written with black fire on white fire, and lying in the lap of God, the divine throne erected in the heaven, which later was over the heads of the Hayat. Paradise on the right side of God, paradise on the right side of God. Where did he tell those sheep to go to, right? So let's Matthew 25, verse number 34. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand. Come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. Back to the legend of the Jews now. On the right side of God was paradise. Hell on the left side. Who was on the left side? The goats. Where did the goats go to? The place that had the weeping and the gnashing of teeth, which was the everlasting torment, and etc. So this is lined up with the legend of the Jews. This is something that they would have known. So they would have got what he was saying. But let me keep reading. Paradise on the right side of God, hell on the left side. The celestial sanctuary directly in front of God, having a jewel on its altar, graven with the name of the Messiah. So the name of the Messiah was written before the before the world was created. Before the foundation of the world, the name of the Messiah was named. Don't that make sense? Because we have read in Enoch, and as well as I believe it's in the scripture too. I know it's in Enoch, but the Lord was named before the foundation of the world. Here we have it here in the legend of the Jews that his name was there before heaven and earth was created. So now let's keep reading. And a voice that cries aloud, return ye children of men. So there was a voice, according to the Jews, that before the foundation of the world, there was a voice created to tell the children of men to return back into this heavenly abode. So what's happening in Matthew 25? All of these things are actually coming into fruition and it's taking place. So we actually have the scene set up, and it makes perfect sense why this was on the right hand, why this was on the left hand, why these individuals was going to go to the right side, and why these individuals was going to go to the left side. So now we have that whole thing laid out for us. So we understand this is the setting. This is what's starting off. So we got people that's going to paradise, and we got people that's going to condemnation. Okay, so we're straight with that. So now I want to go to verse 35, and I'm going to do like I normally do. I will stop and see if anyone want to add anything. So this is verse 35 now. Matthew 25:35. So listen to why these people were able to receive the paradise. For I was an hungry, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. So now, let's see what some of these things are talking about. What's some of this stuff talking about? So these are the things that an individual had to do to inherit the kingdom that was prepared for them. So now, we're going to see where he's actually speaking on. We're going to start in Torah. So let's start in Torah. We're going to go to Deuteronomy 15, verses 7 through 4. Hold on. In fact, I'm not going to do Deuteronomy 15 yet. I'm going to go to Nehemiah first. Let's start with Nehemiah first, and we're going to work our way. Uh-huh.
I want to ask you a question. Why are we going to Nehemiah if your understanding is the new covenant is already here? Why are we going to Nehemiah?
Bet. The reason why we're going to Nehemiah, as well as in any of the Torah and etc. The point is for people to understand the language of the Bible. If a person understands the language of the Bible, once we are done, once the recording is over with, they can still go and study on their own. We have a problem today that people don't even teach the individuals the language of the Bible.
Okay, I'm just trying to follow, my brother.
I know you good, you good. So now we're dealing with the language of the Bible. So this is we're going to go through all of the language, because once you get the language down, like I said, when the recording is over, you can go study on your own because you have the language now. So the language of Matthew 25, he said, I was an hungered, you gave me food. I was thirsty, you gave me drink. I was naked, you clothed me. But where the point was to show now, as I stated earlier, this Bible is about Christ. So from the Torah to the Tanakh, that was about Christ. Then Christ lived his life, and then from Christ's death, the New Testament, when the disciples and all them took over, it still started with the life of Christ, and they was actually living out the life of Christ. So now we're going to show here not only the language, we're going to show you some of the information that was stated. Like for instance, I was hungered and you gave me food. I was thirsty and ye gave me drink. So now, once you go to Nehemiah 9, 14 and 15, listen to what happened here. And madest known unto them thy holy Sabbath, and commandest them precepts, statutes, and laws by the hand of Moses thy servant, and gavest them bread from heaven for their hunger, and broughtest forth water for them out of the rock for their thirst, and promised them that they should go in to possess the land which thou hast sworn to give them. So we see here that the Lord provided Israel with bread from heaven because they was hungry. He gave them water from the rock because they were thirsty. What is said in Matthew 25 again? Let's go here again. Matthew 25. For people to inherit the kingdom of heaven, what was one of the things? Verse number 35. I was an hungered, and ye gave me meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me drink. So this is exactly what the Lord did, what Christ did in the Old Testament. So this is his work from the Old Testament. So we're gonna continue now, because we're gonna show how he's actually naming in Matthew 25. He's naming all of the things that he done, and then the disciples did it afterwards. So he's naming everything that he done, and they was to follow his footsteps as he was the king in that kingdom. They was to follow his footsteps in order to inherit that kingdom also. And that pretty much should tell us what we're supposed to be doing today also. But now, Matthew 14. So we're going to read Matthew 14. We're going to read 15 through 20. So now we find out that when people were hungered, it was required for them to give them food. When they was thirsty, it was required for them to give them water, give them drink. So now, Matthew 14, 15 through 20. And Jesus went forth and saw a great multitude, and was moved with compassion toward them. And he healed their sick. And when it was evening, hold on one sec, there you go. And when it was evening, his disciples came to him, saying, this is a desert place, and the time is now past. Send the multitude away, that they may go into the villages and buy themselves victuals. But Jesus said unto them, they need not depart. Give ye them to eat. So notice here, at this point in time, there were individuals that Christ was helping, individuals that Christ was healing. And what was the response from his disciples when they knew these people were hungry? Their response was, send them away so they can find food on their own. Christ's response was, no, I'm going to feed them. So now look right here. But Jesus said unto them, they need not depart. Give ye them to eat. And they said unto him, we have here but 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And he said, bring them hither to me. And he commanded the multitude to sit down on the grass, and took the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, and looking up to heaven. So what did he look up to? Heaven. That's where his power came from, above. He blessed and brake and gave the loaves to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. And they did all eat and were filled. And they took up of the fragments that remained 12 baskets full. So what happened here? These individuals that the disciples was not going to feed, Christ told them, okay, you guys feed that multitude right there. And they're like, I can't feed the multitude. You know, we only have 5 loaves and 2 fishes. And Christ said, bring them to me. Bring them to me. And when they came to him, he looked up into heaven, he blessed, he brake, and then he gave the loaves to his disciples. And then the disciples gave the loaves and the fish to the multitude. So what is this? What is Matthew trying to tell us? Is this a story that people are supposed to read and get the carnal understanding of it? Of course not. This isn't meant for a story to sit down and gather information from. See, this is why we have the church fathers like Eusebius. We got who everyone called a heretic. We got Origen and etc. We got these individuals that's telling us, hey, we got Philo also. They telling us that, hey, you know, these words that's written, these have deeper meanings. The stories that people are reading, there's deeper meanings behind the Gospels. See, I know a lot of people like to compare the Gospels to history and find the historical information in the Gospels, but that's not what the Gospels was written for. We have a lot of people, the church fathers and etc., these early people that had the earlier understanding, they're telling you, you got Paul and all them, they're telling you that these words right here, they have deeper meanings. It's not just a flat story. So the flat story is the Lord did a miracle and he fed the people. But the spirituality behind it, what we're really supposed to be getting from it is, they was able to feed the people by bringing them to the Messiah. They couldn't feed the people on their own. They had to bring them to the Messiah. And when they brought them to the Messiah, he was the one able to provide them. And through that provision, then they was able to feed the multitude. So it had to go through the Messiah. The Messiah then the disciples, then the multitude. So this is exactly the order that it happened. So this is an example of they were hungry and they got fed. So now, Matthew 15. Go to Matthew 15 now. We're going to read 32 through 37. Then Jesus called his disciples unto him and said, I have compassion on the multitude. So this is compassion. This is another feeding. Because they continue with me now 3 days and have nothing to eat. So what are they? They are hungry. And I will not send them away fasting, lest they faint in the way. And his disciples say unto him, When should we have so much bread in the wilderness as to fill so great a multitude? So where are they at? They are in the wilderness. What are they fin to receive in the wilderness? Nourishment. We can find that being stated in the book of Revelation. When they went into the wilderness, there was a place prepared for them. They was able to receive nourishment. So now, and Jesus said unto them, How many loaves have ye? And they said, 7, and a few little fish. And he commanded the multitudes to sit down on the ground. So now notice here, he's commanding them to sit down. In Matthew 14, what happened? And he commanded, 14:19, he commanded the multitude to sit on the grass. Verse in Matthew 15, he's commanding them to sit down. If you miss this ancient Eastern terminology, you might be lost. In the ancient Eastern world, when a ruler rises or is seated, after he rises and then he seats himself, this is what kings do. And when the audience, when the subjects, when they were to sit, they were putting themselves under subjection. But also, think about it. When a person sits, what are they doing? They are at rest. They are at rest, which is a Genesis 7-day motif. The rest occurs, and once again, in the Eastern world, the ancient Eastern world, rest is dominion from a god or from a higher authority in his temple and everything being at peace. That's what rest meant to the ancient Eastern world. So when they were writing these things down, they would have understood this terminology. So now, when these individuals are sitting in subjection to the Messiah, ready to receive nourishment from him, they are in a state of peace. They are resting in the Messiah. So we got to pick up everything that's happening spiritually. That's that spiritual realm stuff. So now, and it says, he commanded, commanded right there, that's more of that's authority. He commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves of the fishes and gave thanks. So once again, he's giving thanks and break them and gave to his disciples, and the disciples to the multitude. So he did it again. And they did all eat and were filled. And they took up the broken meat that was left 7 baskets full. And they that did eat were 4,000 men, beside women and children. And they sent away the multitude and took ships and came into the coast of Magdala. But the point was, they were hungry, and the Messiah gave them food. He did it in the Torah, and now he's doing it again in the New Testament. But he's using now his disciples as a tool to be the one that's he's providing them, and they are the one that's carrying the food to the individuals, to the ones that follow Christ, the multitude. So now, and I'm almost done. I'm gonna try to get through all of this, and then I'm gonna open it up for responses. So now, once you go to the book of John, we find out something a little deeper. So you go to John, we can go to John 6 first. John 6, we're going to go 48 through 51. 48 says, I am that bread of life. Your fathers did eat manna in the wilderness and are dead. This is the bread which cometh down from heaven, that a man may eat thereof and not die. And I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If any man eat of this bread, he shall live forever. And the bread that I will give is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. So now we see in Nehemiah spoke upon what the angel or the word of the Lord did from the heavenly realm as he gave them nourishment in the Torah. So now we find out that Christ, when he came on the scene from the heavenlies, see, when he was in the heavenly realm, he gave them carnal food. So now, when he's in the earthly realm, he's giving them heavenly food. Let me say it again. When he was in the heavenly realm, he gave them, that was under the Torah, he gave them earthly food. And that earthly food nourished them for a little bit, but they still died. But now that he came on the scene, he reversed it. He gave the earthly people heavenly things. So now he's giving them something heavenly food. He's feeding them with heavenly food. And this food that he's giving them is causing them to receive eternal life. So now we can go to John 4, 13 through 14. We're just going to back up. John 4, 13 through 14. It says, Jesus answered and said unto her, whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again. But whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water, springing up into everlasting life. So once again, when he was in the heavenly realm, he gave them water from that rock, and they still was able to be thirsty again. Now on the earthly realm, he's saying, I can give you water that you will never thirst again. He's giving them heavenly things. So now, who did the provision in the Old Testament? The Messiah. Who's doing the provision now in the New Testament? The Messiah. So he's gave them food and drink in the old. He's giving them food and drink in the new. And we're going to see how this continues on and is passed on to the disciples as they live out his life also. So now I want to go to Deuteronomy 10, 18 through 19. And like I said, I'm going to wrap it up with this verse in just a second. And then I'm going to let, anybody on the stage they want to add or say anything, anybody in the audience want to say anything, they definitely can. So now I want to go to Deuteronomy 10. I want to read 18 through 19. It says, he doth execute the judgment of the fatherless and widow, and loveth the stranger, in giving him food and raiment. Love ye therefore the stranger, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. So now, what was supposed to go on? In the Torah, they were supposed to love the stranger and give the stranger nourishment. What's happening in Matthew 25? They were hungry, you gave them food. They were thirsty, you gave them drink. They was a stranger, and you took them in. So once again, we see that the Messiah himself did it in Nehemiah. But he also required his people to do the same thing. They were supposed to have the same characteristics that he did. So now I want to read about this giving food real fast, right? So, uh, one sec. Let's see here. One sec. Let me find it. I almost got it, y'all. I sent myself the email. I gotta find the email. Let's see here. All right, I gotta find out where. Let me go to my other email. Let's see here. Where did I send it from? Now it's got to be in this email right here. And the reason why I want to bring it out is something important, and I actually should have had it waiting. Let's see, check. It was expounding upon what it meant in that's Deuteronomy 18, 10, 18 through 19. But let me go to my let me check my Yahoo real fast, because it's very important in what I want to bring out. I can't find it, so I ain't gonna go through it. But it was actually explaining what it meant to give food. It was telling the allegorical interpretation of what that actually meant to give food to the ancient world. And I hate that I missed it. I can't even remember where I sent it from. Okay, I found it. Got it. Okay, so now that was Deuteronomy 10, 18 through 19, and thank you guys for staying with me. I apologize for that. I want to go to Genesis 28, 20 through 21 now. So in Genesis 28, 20 through 21, this is what is stated. Let me get this off of my screen. Sorry about that. Dun, dun, dun. All righty. All right, so now Genesis 28, 20 through 21. This is what's stated. Genesis 28, 20. It says, and Jacob vowed a vow, saying, if God will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat, and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. So we have here that Jacob is relying on in fact, he says he's vowing a vow, saying that he needed the Lord God to provide him with food. So remember, the Lord himself is the one that gives the provision of the food in the Old Testament, and he does it in the New Testament, and his disciples do it also. But this is what this actually meant right here. So once we go to the Hebrew word study of bread to eat, let me make sure I'm showing it on my screen. Okay, there you go, right there. It means It's Lekum Lik Okel. Lamed Chet Mim Lamed Aleph Kaf Lamed. All right, so anyway, and Jacob vowed a vow and saying, if God will be with me and will keep in this way that I go and will give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so then I come to my father's house in peace, then shall the Lord be my God. This verse is full of redundancy. So this is what they stated from this Torah section of this Hebrew word study, bread to eat. So this is what bread to eat means from the Hebraic word study. He vows a vow. What else would you vow? Then he wants bread to eat. What else would you do with the bread? Raiment to put on. What else do you do with clothes but to wear? There is a hint suggesting that he is also speaking on something much deeper. I read into the rabbi, or the rabbi, that Jacob was not only presenting to God his physical needs, but his spiritual needs as well. So now you have Jacob saying that he's going to vow a vow. He needs the God to give him bread to eat, raiment to put on. So now he's saying he went through this word study with these rabbis dealing with this Torah breakdown, and he said that it's not that Jacob is only talking about physical needs, but his spiritual needs as well. Sorry, lekum li iko is translated bread to eat. That is the most obvious translation and makes the most sense. However, both lekum and li iko mean to consume food. Two different words meaning pretty much the same thing. However, lek iko could also be a picture of one's heart being consumed by God. Baged, lelabash both mean garment or covering. Lelabash is also used for the covering from evil or treachery. We call all of this a play on words. Jacob was asking God to supply his physical need for food, but at the same time to supply his spiritual need with his presence. So let me say it again. So this is from a Torah word study. And it's saying that when Jacob was asking this, he was asking God to supply his food for his physical needs, but at the same time supply food for his spiritual needs also with his presence. So this is from Genesis 28:20 through 21. This is Jacob. So we find out Jacob. So now let me put it all together. Jacob is asking for physical food and spiritual food. In the Old Testament, what we just read, dealing with in Nehemiah, dealing with what happened in the wilderness, Jacob's descendants, what did they get? They got the physical food. In the New Testament, what are they getting? They're getting the spiritual food. So this is actually deriving from what's happening here in Genesis 28 when Jacob is asking for food. He's asking for food in two senses, and we find out that Jacob, aka his descendants, get that request met. They get the physical food first, and then they get the spiritual food. So if you know that there's in this understanding that there's two different types of food to get, physical and spiritual, in Matthew 25, which one are you going to put? If he said feed, they was hungry and you gave them food, would he be talking about the physical food, the spiritual food, or both? Would he be the one that gave the physical food and at the same time he allowed his disciples to come in later and give the spiritual food? That's up to you to decide, but let's continue, and I'm almost done, and then I will open it up. So now we got John 21 now. So John 21. John 21, 15 through 17. So when they had dined, Jesus said unto Simon Peter, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me more than these? He said unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He said unto him, Feed my lambs. He said to him again the second time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? He said unto him, Yea, Lord, thou knowest that I love thee. He said unto him, Feed my sheep. Verse 17. He said unto him the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved because he said unto him the third time, Lovest thou me? And he said unto him, Lord, thou knowest all things. Thou knowest that I love thee. Jesus said unto him, Feed my sheep. So we have here that the Lord is commanding his sheep, his lamb, his servants to get fed by the disciples. So he's requiring food to be given unto his servants. So now, is this not what was spoken of in Matthew 25? They was a hungered and you gave them meat. But let's keep going. Let's keep going. So you can go to 1 Peter now. 1 Peter 5, 1 and 2. The elders which are among you I exhort, whom am also an elder, and a witness of the sufferings of Christ, and also a partaker of the glory that shall be revealed. Feed the flock of God which is among you, taking the oversight thereof, not by constraint, but willingly, not for filthy lucre, but of a ready mind. So you clearly have it here that first the Lord went through it, right? So first the Lord did the providing for the natural. Then the Lord did the feeding on the spiritual. Then when the Lord was resurrected, who took over? The disciples. Then they went out and they start feeding the sheep, feeding the lambs, feeding the flock. And then when they did that, then the people that followed them that he put into position, the elders and etc., then it was given to them to feed the flock. So you see how it started with Christ's life, and then it went on to his disciples, and then it went on pretty much to their disciples. So Christ was the example, and then he did the physical, carnal example. Then he did the spiritual example. Then the disciples did the spiritual example, living his life, doing the things that he did, Christ did in his life. And then their disciples, the elders, did the things that the disciples, Christ's first disciples, the 12, was doing. So it was a never-ending story. So I'm going to go to Jeremiah 15 through 16. And then I got just a few more, and then I'll call it quit. I know you guys like, man, he's been talking for a minute. So just give me just a little bit longer, and then I will open it up. So now Jeremiah 15, verses 15 through 16. O Lord, thou knowest, remember me, and visit me, and revenge me of my persecutors. Take me not away in thy long suffering. Know that for thy sake I have suffered rebuke. So is this not what Peter did? They suffered a rebuke for the Lord's sake, and etc. Verse 16. Thy words were found, and I did eat them. And thy word was unto me the joy and rejoicing of mine heart. For I am called by thy name, O Lord, God of hosts. So we see that the words of the Lord was being eaten. And this is why you go through the Bible, you can see them eating scrolls and all of these things, these lamentations and all of that stuff, which was pretty much coming from the Spirit, the word of the Lord also. But here we can see the eating of the word of the Lord was nourishment for the prophets. So when we got the eating of the bread or the feeding of the flock, they're feeding them the word of the Lord. So now it's safe to say we can go into the Torah since we're in the prophets now. And this is where I was going to start at first, Deuteronomy 15. We're going to start at 7. It says, if there be among you a poor man of one of thy brethren within all of thy gates in thy land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not harden thine heart, nor shut thine hand from thy poor brother, but thou shalt open thine hand wide unto him, and shalt surely lend him sufficient for his need, and that which he wanted it. Beware that there be not a thought in thy wicked heart, saying, the 7th year, the year of release, is at hand, and thine eye be evil against the poor brother, and thou givest him not, and he cry unto the Lord against thee, and it be sin unto thee. Let me see where I want. Okay, I'm gonna read this a little more. Thou shalt surely give him, and thine heart shall not be grieved when thou givest unto him, because that for this thing the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thy works, and in all that thou puttest thine hand into. For the poor shall never cease out of the land, and that's exactly what Christ told them about the woman with the anointing. He said, you have the poor always. For the poor shall never cease out of the land. Therefore I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt open thine hand wide unto thy brother, to thy poor, and to thy needy in thy land. And if thy brother, an Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee, and serve thee 6 years, then it in the 7th year thou shalt let him go free from thee. All right, so now I can stop right there. So we can see that it was a requirement in Torah that the poor that did not have, they had to give to, right? So if the person was poor, and if a person had it, like food or anything, they had to supply that person with that stuff, like with the things that they needed. And guess what? If they did not supply the poor with the things they needed, and the poor cried to the Lord, it was going to be considered a sin against the person. So once you go back to Matthew 25, you got the people that gave the food, and you got the people that didn't give the food. So here we see from Torah, once again, that's a Torah aspect, that the person that did not give the food was going to be a sin. That was going to be counted as a sin, which is pretty much a foreshadow on how clean and unclean works. And if you want to see that breakdown, you got to pretty much purchase the book. So now we're going to go to 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 10. It says, hold on, let me make sure. Yeah. But this I say, he which soweth sparingly shall weep also sparingly, and he which soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully. Every man according as he purposeth in his heart. So let him give, not grudgingly, or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. And God is able to make all grace abound toward you, that ye always having all sufficiency in all things may abound to every good work. As it is written, he hath dispersed abroad. He hath given to the poor, his righteousness remaineth forever. Now he that ministered seed to the sower both minister bread for your food and multiply your seed sown and increase the fruits of your righteousness. So here we have again that a person was supposed to be a giver. They were supposed to be a cheerful giver. They were supposed to give to those that were in need, which we find out this is pretty much a Torah aspect. So it was required for them to give in need, to people in need. And if they did do that, automatically, if they did give them the bread and the water, if they did give them the word, if they did do these things, then they would be blessed abundantly. So that was the blessing that the Lord gave. So now, I want to go to Romans 12. Romans 12, 10 through 13. It says, be kindly affectionate one to another with brotherly love, in honor preferring one another, not slothful in business, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord. So that being affectionate, kind one to another, this is pretty much helping out your neighbor, helping out your brother, and etc. Rejoicing in hope, patience in tribulation, continually instant in continuing instant in prayer, distributing to the necessity of saints, given to hospitality. So once again, it was a requirement to give to the saints. It was a requirement to give to those that were poor and needy. It was a requirement. So now, verse 20. Therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him. If he thirst, give him drink. For in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. So once again, we're back to that motif of giving food and giving drink. So he said, give me one sec because I'm looking for something. He said, therefore, if thine enemies are hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him a drink. For if you do that, you're going to be heaping coals. So thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. And that's actually pulled from the book of Psalms. That's Psalm 25, 21 through 22. But when a person reads that, if they do that, you're going to reap coals of fire on his head. Let me see if I can actually tell y'all what that means real fast. So if you give food to your enemies, let's see here. Now I had my book here. I did do some rearranging before I got on, which I shouldn't have. All right, so let's see. I'm going to walk two places, and if it's not there, I'm going to continue. But I have a book of idioms, and that book said that the heaping coals of fire on your enemy's head, it's an idiom that they use, and it meant to change the mind of your enemies. Because I'm not going to go around looking for it. I had it in front of me, but I changed it around. So it's in my idiom book, but that's what it meant, to change the minds of your enemies. So if you give your enemies food and drink, it will make them repent. In other words, it could make them repent. So let's continue on to, I got two more verses. So 1 Peter 4, 8 and 9, two more books. 1 Peter 4, 8 and 9. It states, and above all things, have fervent charity among yourselves. For charity shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. So you see that this requirement of charity and etc. was always a requirement from the Old Testament to the New Testament. They were supposed to give to the needy. They were supposed to have love for their brother, and provide for those that were in need. So this will be the last one. Acts 10, 1 through 4. Acts 10, 1 through 4. And there was a certain man of Caesarea called Cornelius, of a centurion of the band called the Italian man, a devout man, and one that feared God with all his house, which gave much alms to the people, and prayed to God always. He saw in a vision, evidently about the ninth hour of the day, an angel of God coming into him and saying unto him, Cornelius. And when he looked on him, he was afraid and said, What is it, Lord? And he said unto him, Thy prayers and thine alms are come up for a memorial before God. So once you look up the word right there, alms, that's dealing with the Strong's. It's compassiousness that is exercised towards the poor, uh, benefaction, and etc. So he was given to the poor. It was so it was such glory that this Gentile was given to the poor that he was able to be visited by an angel and eventually required the Holy Spirit, which allowed him to come inside the fold of Christ also. So this is the importance that was put on giving, the importance of putting on feeding those that were uh, hungry, giving water or drink to those that was thirst. No matter if it was on the carnal realm, the earthly realm, giving them real food, real drinks, or the spiritual realm, giving them spiritual food, spiritual drink. It was a requirement, and if they did that requirement, they was able to enter into eternal life. And if they didn't do the requirement, they went into damnation. So that is a continuing process, as it started with Christ. Sorry, as Jacob brought it up first in Genesis, Torah, and then we see actually Christ doing it throughout the stories dealing with Jacob, or Jacob's descendants. And then we see Christ doing it again in the New Testament. And then we see his disciples taking over, and they were doing it. And then we see that their disciples took over and they did it. So this was the importance of giving this food and providing. So now I am done with that verse. The next verse ain't going to be so long. So does anyone have anything they want to add to what they have just heard? Go ahead, brother.
I'll wait till you're done. You want to wrap it up, and then we can sort of break bread?
Well, that's fine. I don't mind. Does anybody else got anything they want to bring up, though? Like, just to hit that point.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait until after you then. But great stuff so far. Remind the people below to check out thefirstchurch.live for articles. Probably have an article on a lesson that was dropped tonight, so on there, so you'll be able to see it in written form. Also, check out AOSD-Chandler on YouTube. Check out SF Wisdom on YouTube. Check out RPK on YouTube, and All Things Fulfilled on YouTube. Peace and blessings.
Just to go over that RPK-Resurrection Prophecy and Kingdom. Again, that's RPK-Resurrection Prophecy and Kingdom on YouTube. And go to TikTok and look up Batson Better Life on TikTok.
Facts.
I'm back if you guys are done. Alrighty. So now let's go to verse 26 now. So Matthew 25, sorry, verse 36. So Matthew 25, verse 36. So Matthew 25, verse 36, it states, naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. So now notice once again, from the very first principle, I stated that these things that's going on in Matthew 25, this was the life that the Messiah lived. The Messiah lived this life while he was in the heavenly realm, and then he lived the same life while he was on the earthly realm. And then his disciples took over when he ascended into the heavenly realm. So his disciples took over with these attributes. So these attributes that we're reading in Matthew 25 originated with the Messiah. This is the Messiah's life. And then the disciples took over, or the people to inherit the kingdom of heaven, they took over after the Messiah ascended. So, what are they using? And then I get ready to start. What's being used here as a model? Christ, the Messiah, is being used as a model for those that would inherit his kingdom or those that would not have access to his kingdom. So Christ is the model. His life was the model, no matter if it was from the Old Testament, no matter if it was from him giving the Torah to Moses, no matter if it was from him living it out in the New Testament. This is Christ's life. He was the model to determine who was or was not going to get the kingdom of heaven. So in order to get the kingdom of heaven, you had to do the same actions that Christ did to a certain degree. Now, you can't actually do or be Christ, but you can actually do the things that he did on a certain degree, especially through the Holy Spirit. So now, let's go to Matthew 25:36. We read it. Naked and ye clothed me. I was sick and ye visited me. I was in prison and you came unto me. So first, let's see where this started at. Naked and ye clothed me. You go Genesis to Genesis, chapter 3, verse number 11. Well, you can actually go to, let's see, Genesis 2, verse 25. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. So we got the nakedness of quote unquote mankind here being brought up in Torah. Once again, started in Torah. So we have the first introduction to the nakedness. So now, once you go to Genesis 3, we see that nakedness comes up again. But once you go to verse 11, and he said, who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? So, once you go now to verse 21. Unto Adam also and to his wife did the Lord God make coats of skin and clothe them. So you got the word of the Lord, who is the Messiah, who is the Christ, starting out in the Genesis narrative, clothing mankind. This actually happened dealing with the wicked aspect of what they did, but he still provided mankind with the clothing. So this is the first part right here, the first time, naked, and ye clothed me. Here, Genesis 3, Genesis chapter 3, they were naked, and he clothed them. So now, we can continue. Let's go to Isaiah 58. Isaiah 58, 6 through 7. Is not this the fast that I have chosen? To loose the band of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, and to the oppressed, let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke. Is it not to deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out into thy house? This is looking very Matthew 25-ish, isn't it? When thou seest the naked, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh. Is that not what Adam and them did? They hid from their own flesh. They tried to cover themselves up. Here, that thou cover him, and that thou hide not thyself from thine own flesh. So, just in case anyone don't know, Isaiah 58 is about the year of Jubilees. Once again, Isaiah 58 is about the year of Jubilees. It's a motif dealing with Jubilees. That's why you find it in Matthew 25, because Matthew 25 is about the year of Jubilees. It's a Jubilee motif. That's the main feast that gets overlooked the most, the year of Jubilees. Meanwhile, a majority of the judgment, especially in Revelation and etc., especially Revelation chapter 20 and all of that, that's actually about the year of Jubilees. So you have this Jubilee understanding right here being spoken on how the true fast is what's going on here. And here in Isaiah 58, you actually see that it's actually found in Matthew 25. But once again, you see that it was a requirement that they gave clothes to those that were naked. So we can continue on with that. We can go to let's try Luke 3 now. Let's go to Luke 3. Luke 3, 9 through 11. And now, also, the axe is laid unto the root of the trees. Every tree, therefore, which bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. So now, who was being cast into the fire in Matthew 25? That would be the goats. So this is Christ using this language dealing in the Torah and etc. to expound more on this judgment motif. So he's concentrating on the element that dealt with the Jews. So the element that dealt with the Jews, these individuals, these parts of the goats, the part of the goats that was going to be cast into the fire, these are also the ones that's not bringing forth good fruits. So now let's keep going. Verse 10. And the people asked him, saying, what shall we do then? He answered and said unto them, he that hath 2 coats, let him impart to him that hath none. And he that hath meat, let him do likewise. This is very Matthew 25-ish. Giving food to those that don't have food. Now we're giving clothes to those that don't have clothes. We're giving a coat to one that don't have a coat. This is very Matthew 25-ish right here. But this is what's happening on more of a corner realm, right? So we can also go to 2 Timothy 1, 16 through 18. The Lord give mercy unto the house of Onesiphorus, for he oft refreshed me and was not ashamed of my chain. But when he was in Rome, he sought me out very diligently and found me. The Lord grant unto him that he may find mercy of the Lord in that day. and how many things he ministered unto me at Ephesus, thou knowest very well. So here we got Paul, right, being in chains, in prison. And you got one of the gentlemen coming to visit Paul while he was in prison. And Paul said, because of that righteous action of him visiting him while he was in prison, when that day of the Lord occurred, he prayed that the Lord found mercy on that individual. Because why? One of the requirements was visit those that are in prison, right? So now, once again, there's a carnal, there's a natural, there's an earthly way, and then there's a spiritual way about every single one of these verses in 35 and 36. There was a, once again, earthly, and then there was a spiritual way. So now, let's go to Luke 4, 18 through 21. It says, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. So that's him pretty much feeding the poor, but this is a Jubilees motif. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of the sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. And he closed the book, and he gave it again to the minister and sat down. And the eyes of all of them that were in the synagogue were fastened on him. And he began to say unto them, this day is this scripture fulfilled in your ears. So now notice here, once again, y'all notice I stated earlier that Jubilees, the Feast of Jubilees, dealing with Jubilees, one of the most overlooked feasts, which was pretty much one of the most important feasts, but it's overlooked pretty much the most. Here we see that Christ was actually sent to preach Jubilees. Let's read it, verse 19 right there again. To preach the acceptable year of the Lord, which is the year of Jubilees. So Christ was actually sent to preach Jubilees. You heard it here, folks. Christ here to preach Jubilees that need to be brought out more. Everybody should be going out and studying on Jubilees and what that meant to the first century audience, what that meant to the spiritual realm as well as the natural realm. It don't get taught enough. It need to be brought out. I already did a lesson on Jubilees, and I stated this in that lesson. It gets overlooked too much when the Messiah was concentrating on it. But now, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. So we see that he went to preach deliverance to the captives. So those that were the captives had to be in captivity. So they were in sort of a bondage, in sort of a prison-like state. So now, we can go to 1 Peter 3, 18 and 19. So this is what Christ did while he was walking the earth, right? So now, 1 Peter 3, 18 through 19. For Christ also had suffered once for sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit, quickened to bring to life by the Spirit, resurrection motif, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison, which sometime were disobedient, when once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah, while the ark was a preparing, wherein few, that is, 8 souls were saved by the water. So what's going on here? And we got plenty of references. Josephus referenced the Sibylline oracles. We got Eusebius, who got a letter from one of the disciples of Christ speaking on this event right here. And they said that Christ indeed went into quote unquote the netherworld or Hades, hell, however you want to call it. And he went and preached to those souls that were in that realm. And he preached deliverance unto those souls and let it be known that that year of Jubilees was indeed approaching, or that time of Jubilees, the fulfillment of it, was indeed approaching where they was going to receive the kingdom. So now, here, when it said the 8 souls that were saved in the days of Noah and etc., once you go through Josephus, as well as I think the Dead Sea Scrolls got it dealing with the what's it called, Apocryphon or whatever of Genesis. When they Enoch actually got it also dealing a little bit with this, but it was a tradition that all of the righteous individuals that lived in Noah time. See, Noah was the one that was found perfect and righteous in the eyes of the Lord in order to continue mankind. But there still were righteous people before Moses. I mean, before Noah. Sorry, before Noah. You had Enoch. You had Shem. I mean, not Shem. Seth. I'm messing up. You had Enoch. You had Seth. You had the descendants of Seth, and etc. You had Enos, Methuselah, whatever Noah's dad name was. But you had all these people, right, that were considered righteous. And according to these legends, the Lord did not allow the flood to occur until after all of these righteous men died. So the flood, once again, according to that legend, the flood did not occur until after all of those righteous men died. So now, those righteous men were in Hades. So here in 1 Peter 3, we see he go back to that time period in which these righteous men lived. Because of verse 20, which sometime were disobedient, once the long suffering of God waited in the days of Noah. So he's turning right back. He's throwing that imagery to make you think back into the days of Noah, because it was an understanding back then, because we have it from the Dead Sea Scroll and Josephus, it was an understanding back then that these righteous men were in fact in Hades. They was in hell waiting on their deliverance. So we got Christ going to preach to those that were in prison, those that was in hell or Hades waiting. So we have Christ preaching to the people that were in prison while he was on earth. They was in prison to their sin. Some of them was in actual prison. Once you go through like the church fathers, they tell you some of the missions. But not only that, you actually have the disciples going to prisons, preaching to people in prison. And then you have some that the disciples made, some other, like Paul had these individuals, etc. They came and visit him while he was in prison. So you got disciples that was created by the disciples visiting others in prison also. So there was a spiritual visiting of those in prison, and then there was a carnal visiting of those in prison. He was putting everything in subjection, no matter if it was in the spiritual or the earthly, it was all going in subjection through the work. So now I want to go to Ezekiel 18:4 through 9. Ezekiel 18:4 through 9. It says, "Behold, all souls are mine. As the soul of the Father, so also the soul of the Son is mine. The soul that sinneth, it shall die. But if a man be just, and do that which is lawful and right, and hath not eaten upon the mountains, neither had lifted up his eyes to the idols of the house of Israel, neither had defiled his neighbor's wife, neither had come near a menstruous woman, and had not oppressed any, but hath restored to the debtor his pledge," that's dealing pretty much with Jubilees, "hath spoiled none by violence, hath given his bread to the hungry, and hath covered the naked with the garment. He that had not given forth upon usury, neither had taken any increase, that hath withdrawn his hand from iniquity, had executed true judgment between man and man, he walked in my statutes and hath kept my judgments to deal truly. He is just. He shall surely live, said the Lord God. This is sounding very Matthew 25-ish again. So we see that all the souls are his, but some of the souls was going to die of the man that sinneth, and then some of the souls that were going to live, which was the man that followed that part of the Torah. Because these things that he stated are actually found in Torah. So when Christ is speaking on these things, they're coming from Torah in Matthew 25. So we're finna finish it. We're going to go to James 2. James 2, 14 through 16. What doth it profit, my brethren, though a man say he had faith and have not works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister be naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you say unto them, depart in peace, be ye warm and filled, notwithstanding ye give them not those things which are needful to the body, what doth it profit? Even so faith, if it hath not works, is dead being alone. So he right there, he was actually using one of the things that Christ taught, dealing with clothing the naked, giving food to those that was hungry. So he was using that as a means of saying that to explain how faith with works work, because we know without faith it's hard to, you cannot please the Father without faith. So he's using the aspect of Christ's teaching to expound on faith and works being hand in hand going together. So the people in Christ's time that had the faith in Christ, they also had to do the works, which was going through clothing those that was hungry, naked, clothing those that was naked, feeding those that was hungry, and etc. So all of these things had to be done also on a carnal realm, in a carnal way, and they was done in a spiritual way. So once we go to 5, James 5, 13 through 15, is any among you afflicted? Let him pray. Is any merry? Let him sing songs. Is any sick among you? Let him call for the elders of the church, and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall raise him up. And if he have committed sins, they shall be forgiven him. So once again, they had to visit those that were in prison. They had to visit those that were sick. So here we have James talking and teaching that the elders had to be the ones that go visit the sick. So if a person was sick, he had to call the elders, and the elders had to go visit him, which was one of the things that was stated in Matthew 25. In order to receive the kingdom, this is some of the attributes that these people had. This is some of the works that they had to do. It had to be done spiritually. It had to be done earthly. So now, we're going to end it with Hebrews 13, 1 through 3. In Hebrews 13, 1 through 3, let brotherly love continue. So we always see that brotherly love. We see that coming back time and time again. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares. Remember them that are in bonds, as bound with them, and them which suffer adversity, as being yourselves also in the body. So we have, once again, to treat the strangers right, and etc. And in Hebrews, the author of Hebrews, he said, be not forgetful to entertain strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unawares, because these angels would have been strangers. And I believe he's actually pulling this from, once again, Torah, dealing with the story of Lot, how the Lot went in and he entertained those strangers, and he didn't know that they was angels in the beginning. So, so we have that scenario. We see that actually found in Torah also. These guys stayed in Torah and the Tanakh, and once again, all things of the Bible, especially dealing with the New Testament, is actually found. It's going to be found in the Garden of Eden narrative. It's going to be found in the Exodus narrative, and it's going to be found in the flood narrative dealing with Noah. But when we're talking about Paul, from what I have read and came across and studied upon, and etc., most of his understanding came from the Garden of Eden narrative. He hits it over and over and over and over again. So it'll be keen for everyone to start there. But if you don't want, if it seems too complicated and stuff, we have created a book. We're in the final process of right now. The editing is almost done. We just got a few more things to make out. But we done put together an easy guide for people. So once again, we're trying to get people to understand how the biblical narratives, how the biblical languages work. So, I am done with this lesson. Does anyone want to add anything?
This includes anyone in the audience. If anyone in the audience
Thank everyone for Facebook for listening on. This is Evan Israel from the Assembly of Sound Doctrine Chandler. So right here. Thank you all for listening in. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thank you all.
simple things,
Let's get ready to get out of here.
service. It shifts, our conscience shifts. We're so easily can focus on our own selves, the own kingdom that we build. So I just have to say thanks for sharing. Very enlightening. I'll just piggyback. Give me a minute or two.
Thank you for clicking on the channel.
AOSD.
Assembly of Sound Doctrine Channel.
Assembly of Sound Doctrine.
AOSD, RPK-Resurrection Prophet Kingdom. Like, subscribe, share. Let's go!
Come get a lesson. I'm teaching blessings. No need for guessing. I'm knowledge testing. It's truth time. The wise will shine. And the wicked will pine. I'm a righteous kind. Right out of trouble, I'm keeping it settled. Just me and my brothers and sisters. They love us. We're fixing the puzzle, no stressing. I come to the bunker, the struggle with aunties and cuz. Wanna read it, believe it. They should be back. See it and need it like a kid back. Breaches and pieces like a Kit Kat. Akis and I get seasoned. It's a poly world, not dolly world. Album love, the kingdom within. AOSD is finessing. RPK, let your journey begin. It's a poly world, not dolly world. Album love, the kingdom within. AOSD is finessing. RPK, let your journey begin. AOSD, 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 Assembly of Sound Doctrine.